Good morning and welcome. It is a foggy, drizzly Monday morning here in Ventura County. It is 8 o'clock. It is the 27th day of September 2021, and I am your guide to all tabletop role-playing game news, weather, and sports, the tabletop RPG love train that is the king of snark himself, the OGGM, and we have, oh my giddy aunt, so much stuff that happened over the weekend that we're going to be talking about this for days to come. But first and foremost, we have to address the 8,000-pound Tarrasque in the room that is everything we know coming out of the big weekend shindig that Wizards of the Coast hosted over the weekend, including supposedly their plans for the future. So I will be discussing Wizards of the Coast in this in great detail with my usual level of snarkiness, sarcasm, and less than pleasant attitude towards the stuff that Wizards of the Coast does. So if this is something that might upset you or you take umbrage with, or if you're a big fan of 5e and Wizards of the Coast and everything they're doing and you don't want to hear somebody say something negative about it, because it might trigger you, J. Scott, probably stop watching now. I'll give you a moment to decide while I drink my coffee. Yes, I'm drinking coffee because it's cold, and I'm using my radio voice because I'm serious. I know it's a little early, but I do have to go to the doctor, so let's get this out of the way. Over the weekend, Wizards of the Coast hosted their usual gaming panel celebration thingy. The first two chunks of it were dedicated to current product and the product we're expecting to see shortly, i.e. Strixhaven, Witchlight, and the Dragon Book. At the end of the thing yesterday, we had a panel featuring a whole bunch of people whose names you won't recognize, and there's something important about that. Ray Winnegar, Liz Shue, Chris Perkins 2.0, Jeremy Crawford, of course, whose name we know, and Ellie Osley Wood, who I have no idea. So with the exception of Chris Perkins 2.0 and Jeremy Crawford, I don't know who any of these people are or what, if anything, they have to do with Dungeons & Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. During this, also note, it is the very last thing they did for the weekend thing, which means a large chunk of their audience had already left, and they were able to slide in a lot of stuff without us really noticing until today. So the future of the D&D was addressed in this panel, and this is what we know so far, which isn't a lot of anything. Now, let us just say, first and foremost, of course, take anything I say going forward with a grain of salt, because, one, Wizards of the Coast has adopted the Marvel philosophy of lying. So we don't know if any of this is actually true or if these are red herrings to disguise what they really have planned. Because remember, Wizards of the Coast said they were never going to revisit Ravenloft, and then they revisited Ravenloft. So take anything they say with a grain of salt. And two, remember, Wizards of the Coast may change their ideas at any time. So again, none of these things may actually happen. So, the Future of the D&D video vlog thing was split into several sections. The first was that D&D is planning on exploring the multiverse, so baby steps to Planescape. They have already revisited the first of their three settings with Ravenloft, which, by the way, made them no money and was a disaster. Next year, we can expect two major D&D settings to come, both in formats they've never been published before. What are the classic D&D settings that we might expect? Eberron, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Mysteka, Dark Sun, Planescape, Spelljammer, Hollowed World. I don't know. Ravenloft, We also have a little peek at the third classic D&D setting, a cameo. And we can expect another classic setting in 2023. So in regards to the cameo, somebody mentioned that there is something hidden in the background during the vlog. So if we look at each individual who was in the vlog, Ellie Osley Wood in the background, she had artwork from Strixhaven and Witchlight. Ray Whittaker, no idea who he is. In the background, he has some kind of Dungeons & Dragons poster, but I can't tell what it is. And he is wearing an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons t-shirt. That could be our cameo. Liz Scholl, no idea who she is. She has got some kind of shirt that looks like a map. That might be our clue that as to what the cameo is. Again, you can't really tell. The biggest hint is Chris Perkins, because in the background, he has a model sailing ship. If that's the cameo, that means the setting could be Planescape. And finally, Jeremy Crawford in the background, he has a picture of a flower. So I don't think that's the cameo. So if there is a cameo, it's either what the map that Liz Scholl is wearing, the fact that Chris Perkins noticeably has a sailing ship in the background of his picture, i.e. Planescape, or that Ray is wearing an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons t-shirt that has some kind of colorful fantasy poster in the background. Knowing Chris, I'm going with the boat, and that it's Planescape. I mean, let's face it, they've been hinting at Planescape for the past 2 years with everything they've done. Okay, the second section was Evolving D&D. Because of new players, Wizards of the Coast is always listening. No, they're not. They are exploring new styles of play, like that conflict can be resolved without combat. There is nothing new about that. Role-playing games that resolving situations without combat have existed forever. They also are presenting monsters and spells with new formats. They have new formats for the product, and we can expect more adventure anthologies. What classics are there left to revisit that they haven't already visited other than the Desert of Desolation and Expedition to the Barrier Peaks? And how many of those can they revisit, since Goodman Games is gobbling up so many of the old licenses? They're also planning on talking about making products easier to use, ways to create the best experience, the safe experience, and they're experimenting and looking into technology. Well, that goes without saying. There's obviously a huge potential future of role-playing that will involve the digital environment. Or it could go completely a different direction, and the more D&D moves towards a technological setting, the more people will go, no, screw that, and go back to a more classic, physical, let's just play at the table. I've got stuff written on a piece of paper. That's all we need. They also talked about the changes in their approaches to design, and we can see some of those changes in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, interior design and tools to make running the adventure easier, like story trackers and guidance. Remember, Wizards of the Coast thinks we're idiots, and thinks that we have an attention span that isn't longer than 90 minutes. Beyond that, the books, they want to make different and varied products, packaging and form factor, things different to hardcover and box sets. So here's the third big thing. The changes to the way we're going to get the product. And as right now, it looks like there's going to be 2, possibly 3 ways we're going to receive the product. We could expect a blog coming forward addressing the changes. Now, if we look at some of the other stuff that's coming out, like the announcement of the rules expansion gift set, and we're going to get into, it does feel like they are going for lots of high retail cost product going forward. Hardcovers, big chunky books, box sets, deluxe editions, all that incredibly expensive stuff that comes out of Beetlejuice and Grimm. Wizards of the Coast seems to feel their target audience going forward are somebody with a lot of disposable income that doesn't mind throwing down $70, $80, $100, $200 for a Dungeons and Dragons box set. Here's the first thing. Here's the first thing that I think is their potential mistake. going forward, if we look at the way the economy is now, we look at the way shipping is now, we look at all the things that are affecting our economy, money is going to become scarce again. We're going into another recession, whether we like to admit it or not. The pandemic, the shutdown, what's going on with the government, the lack of jobs. People are not going to be in a position in 2 years to want to spend $100 on a D&D set when that's food and clothing. If I have a choice between spending $100 on the role-playing game and $3 on the role-playing game and getting pretty much the exact same experience, I think I speak up for most people, are going to want to buy that $3 game. So is Wizards of the Coast going to price themselves out of the market? And if they continue to follow the direction it looks like they're following, based upon the way our economy is going right now, they could very well price themselves out of the market. Now, moving forward, the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons is the 2024. We have been speculating as to what Wizards of the Coast's plans are for 2024 and the future of the hobby, and they announced that they're going to tell us something next year. They have begun work on a new version of the core rulebooks based upon the recent surveys. There will be more surveys coming up. So really, they haven't begun any works on the rulebooks because they're waiting for more surveys and they haven't started playtesting yet. Anything that they make for 2024 will be completely backwards compatible for everything for 5th edition because they're ignoring all the older editions, and a lot of the experience will be digital. Based upon this, it feels like what we're going to get is Dungeons & Dragons 5.1 or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 5.1 for the 50th anniversary, and we're not going to get a 6th edition. And yeah, I think their fifth edition is it. We're never going to see anything more. They're going to keep milking 5th edition as long as they can until their target audience changes. So based upon everything we see here, we can expect a backwards compatible, completely rewrite 5.1 Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, a DM's Guide, and which means by then you're going to have it already released everything that you're going to backwards compatible, so why do I have to buy it if it's not a new system? Yeah, again, doesn't make sense. So yes, there it is. There's the number one news we've been waiting for, what they have planned for 2024, and yes, they have planned for something. It's going to be a complete rework of the rules, so we're looking at 5.1 something and probably not a 6th edition, and it's going to be completely backwards compatible with everything else that has come out before with 5th edition, which makes it totally pointless. We do have a rules expansion gift set coming out in January. It was supposed to be their big holiday product, but due to the shipping issues, bing, there it is again, money, shipping issues, we are getting a huge slipcase featuring Tasha's Xanthars and the brand new Monster Manual, Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. Except, of course, if you read the breakdown going forward, there isn't anything really new in Mordenkainen's Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. It's more of just a collection of stuff they've already done. This is going to be a big, chunky slipcase with 2 books you should probably already have if you're following Wizards of the Coast product, Xanthars and Tasha's. And Tasha's now apparently is completely a pointless book because we now know that Tasha lied, and everything they said that they were going to change in Tasha's they have since gone backwards on, like alignment. And we'll have the new book. We have a preview of the new book, Monsters of the Multiverse, coming out. It will first be in this expansion set, or if you want to wait, we could have the separate book coming out a little bit later in 2022, but they definitely looks like they want you to buy this expansion. And the rules expansion is set for January 25th, featuring Mordenkainen's, Tasha's, and Xanthars with a new DM screen and a big slick case. Look for it to be really expensive. What we know about Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse is that it's updated material to give us a hint of what the future is going to look like, and the future looks very Saturday morning cartoonish. There's improvements based on feedback, rebalancing new and old arc. There are going to be over 250 monsters and 30 playable races, all setting agnostic races that have been published outside the player's handbook. What does that mean, since you've already said that nothing that they've done other than the 5e stuff counts. So I guess if the playable races that we've seen in Xanthars, Volos, Tashas, some of the specific settings like Ravenica are now going to be re-released in a setting agnostic, which means if you don't have those books, this is a good way to see those races, but chances are you already have those books. It's also going to include stuff from Witchlight, Fizbin, and Strixhaven, which means I have no reason now to buy Fizbins because you're just going to re-release the stuff that you're doing in Fizbins in Mordekainen's Presents. Thank you. It will be available first as a gift set and then separately later. Monsters are going to be alphabetized throughout rather than using subsections. So this is also how they're going to be presenting the... and actually, this goes against how they're going to be presenting the Dragons and Fizbins, because the Dragons and Fizbins, they said, are going to be done by challenge rating. But now they're saying, no, we're going to go back to alphabetized, and we won't be using subsections. We have some of the artwork, and it looks very Saturday morning cartoon, very we know who your target audience is, and it's not me. Yeah. They've also announced stats plus changes. The spellcasting trait is gone. Spellcasting actions are slimmed down, and spellcasting monsters need less prep. Spell slots are gone for NPCs. Instead, there's just going to be a regular action that would have once been spells. So that's actually something we've already discussed. Matt Colville has gone into that. Runehammer's gone into that. Making NPCs easier to manage by just getting rid of the spell casting list of 100 spells and go, well, chances are 90% of the time this is what he's going to do, so we're only going to list this. Yeah, they're also addressing the fact that spells make monsters too easy to defeat, because once you have your hand on player character with spells and doing stuff, we're addressing the fact that monsters can't be friends or foes, and some magic will help rather than hinder PCs. So monsters, if they're friends, might bless you, and monsters, if they're foes, might cast a fireball on you. And finally, they addressed where they are going, which is more anthologies, another classic setting. We have 2 all-new settings coming up, completely new in development stages. They're in exploration phase, which means they are testing the viability, play testing them in small groups, and they may never see the light of day. That's interesting. They're going to be retooling nostalgia and blending it with new concepts, a blend of things that and things we've never done before. I don't know what that means, since, they've said that nothing before 2014 matters, and they've made it very clear that the nostalgia crowd, people like myself, are not their target audience. And in the short term, Wizards of the Coast announced that they're going to have more news in 2022 about places we're going, what worlds we're going to see, what their plans are. So really, we are not going to tell you anything. And finally, they ended with a picture of Boo, the miniature giant space hammer. So all we know from that is pretty much not a lot. New products coming out. There's a hint to one of the new products of what it is in the pictures. Based upon the shirts, it's either something to do with AD&D, something to do with a map that I think is on Liz's shirt, or Chris Perkins with the boat, and I'm going for Chris Perkins with the boat. D&D is evolving. People like me are not the target audience. I don't think Wizards of the Coast knows who their target audience is anymore. If the future, if Wild of Beyond the Witchlight is anything, and Strixhaven is anything to go by, we know what the future is going to look like in regards to product. We know that the product's going to be more expensive, that they're going for the high-end gift items first, and the regular old $50, $20 book second, and we're not going to see a lot of cheap stuff from them. The days of $20, $15, $10 product from Wizards of the Coast is over. I think this is a mistake. We're going to have a gift set in January. They've begun work on the 50th anniversary, which is going to be, it looks like, 5.1. Note, and that will bring us to our final thing to talk about before we shut down, because I do have to get going, but don't worry, we are going to address this again. So the final thing I wanted to bring up is noticeable in their absence from this weekend are several of the major influencers. Critical Role not present, Jeannie D not present, Satine not present, a lot of the other the Gax pack not present. Neither of the Gygax is present. Nobody from Penny Arcade present. A lot of new people, many names we've never heard before, though, are present, but noticeable in their absence, Critical Role. Noticeable in their absence, Critical Role. Critical Role, who has their own publishing company now, and has hinted that they're making their own role-playing games. They already have 2 role-playing games in the pike, and it goes without saying that they're probably going to do more. So, is Wizards of the Coast breaking ties with Critical Role under the suspicion that Critical Role Publishing is going to be doing their own role-playing game separate from D&D 5.1? And if so, what does that mean? Now, again, I don't know anything for sure. I think it's just very telling that Critical Role was not there. And that we can expect a 5.1 fully backwards compatible, which means I don't really need to buy it because everything you're changing you've already shown me. And you have a book coming out called Mordecaians, which is going to contain all the new stuff from Strixhaven, Witchlike, and Fizbin, which means I don't need to buy Strixhaven, Witchlike, or Fizbin, especially since most of that stuff I can get online for way less. Why spend $100 for Witchlight when you're just going to re-release the stuff in January? Again, Wizards of the Coast marketing ideas don't really make a lot of sense, and it does feel like Wizards of the Coast doesn't know who their target audience is, but take anything I say with a grain of salt because Wizards of the Coast lies. And I think it's fair to say Wizards of the Coast doesn't really know who their target audience is anymore, so they're just trying all sorts of stuff, as in we saw with the return of alignment in Witchlight. Whether alignment will remain or not depends on what the monsters in Strixhaven and the Dragon Book. No explanations for why certain NPCs from other universes are now appearing in the D&D universe, or what the D&D universe sacred timeline is anymore. Is the Forgotten Realms it, or now is it just sort of not it? None of these books are really Forgotten Realms centric. Adventures anthologies means we don't have to come up with new stuff. All we have to do is convert old stuff. A lot of stuff to percolate on, we need to think about before we go any further, but I do need to get going. So if you appreciate this content, let me know. If you don't appreciate this content, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 1,000 subs. What is your take on all this, especially the announcement for the 50th anniversary, which is we don't know nothing and we're not going to tell you till next year. Till next time, I am your number one source for all tabletop role-playing game news, weather, and sports. Oh boy, and there's still so much more to go over, but I gotta go. Talk to you later.